Should be okay. All right, we are live. Hi, everybody. I think we're 2 minutes jumping on, but that's okay. I see. I got. I think I have a flag too, but you already represented us.
Yay!
Uh, okay. This LinkedIn has got. We got to work with LinkedIn in some other way. Okay. So, guys, welcome to another episode of TATT Talks. I am your host, Roe D. Ruben Njiraro. I serve as the Community Engagement Director for the African Think Tank. And so I'm excited today to have another individual who will share her story, her journey as a African, and about her organization and how she then got connected with the African Think Tank. And as we are having this conversation, please, if you have any questions, please ask those questions. And I will be able to put those questions to Judy. We'll have them pop up. And like I said, our guests lead our conversation. They can share as much or as little as they so desire. We leave that liberty to them. But what's important with TAT Talks is really the personal aspect and the personal touch of each of our guests, or impact of each of our guests, to share their personal life story in a way that that is impactful. So, without further delay, I think I want to make sure remove that. So, okay, there we go. And so I am going to get into this because we want to give Judy the floor so she can have as much time as possible. So, our guest today is Judy Meeks. Hey, Judy, how you doing? I see the flag, Zimbabwe.
Representing.
Um, huh? Good.
Yep,
Okay.
that's me.
All right. Is the founder and CEO of Strategic Digital Marketing, an agency she launched in 2011 to provide quality and affordable digital marketing solutions that fuel business growth. With more than 25 years of leadership experience and certifications in Meta, TikTok, Google Ads, and GA4, Judy brings deep expertise in helping brands scale through integrated omni-channel strategies. So you're gonna have to break that omni-channel piece down. So her agency has supported businesses across more than 40 niches, from startups to fast growth and mature companies, always with a focus on measurable results and long-term success. Guided by the Ubuntu philosophy she grew up with in Zimbabwe, I am because we are. Judy is passionate about creating shared success, collaboration, and authentic relationships. A champion of diversity and inclusion, she is especially dedicated to empowering women, minorities, veteran, immigrant, and disabled owned businesses. Under her leadership, strategic digital marketing has become a trusted growth partner, combining creativity, data, and strategy to craft campaigns that make a meaningful difference. Judy believes in the power of digital technologies to build not just stronger businesses, but also a more sustainable and equitable future. Okay. Um, yeah. So that's a mouthful. So we're gonna definitely let you unpack that over our conversation. But before we do, I just, Zimbabwe, I've been to Zimbabwe twice. And both trips were extraordinary. One was by road, and the other was by helicopter. From the second one from Livingston into Zimbabwe, and I went to Bulawayo, and I had never heard of Bulawayo. I think 6 years ago. And despite the challenges with the organization and its leadership, that's a story for another time, which was not great. The country and the people of Zimbabwe really, personify for me much of Africa. And I'm from northern part of Africa and Chad, and so it was those cultural connections that were unspoken, but yet we felt that in the same way. In Bulawayo, wow, I was just so impressed. And yeah, just a great great visit and great time there. So, Judy, let me give you the floor. Let's start off a little bit about your personal story, and then we'll go from there into your business. So,
Well, thank you, Ruben. That was quite the introduction. I appreciate the opportunity that the African think tank has given me to connect with the diaspora that is not only locally here in Dallas, but all throughout the US. As you so rightly pointed out, I am a second generation Chinese Zimbabwean, and my grandfather left China, Canton, China, which is south of China, and left at 1898 is when he arrived in Africa, and he actually
yeah,
settled in Zimbabwe. And in Bulawayo, especially the city that you're so fond of, is actually my
yeah.
home. Yeah, it's my hometown.
Okay.
My father
All
was born
right.
there, and I was born there, and so I have a wonderful childhood growing up there. And
Yeah.
now I'm in America, and it was interesting that instead of my grandfather taking the boat and coming to California to work on the railroads and work on the gold rush in the U.S., he chose to walk the path to a different drum and decided to be
Hmm.
adventurous and seek his fortune in Africa instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my
Uh,
grandfather actually is listed in the Zimbabwe National Archives as being one of the
really?
Chinese pioneers. One of the
Mm,
Chinese pioneers
okay.
that is credited with building up the Chinese community. And
Wow.
so, in true Ubuntu philosophy, which is lift up your community, he would like save money, send it back to his home village, and then be able to sponsor another family to come out and
Hmm.
start their life afresh in Zimbabwe. And
Yeah.
so the community built up over time. And so it was very interesting because I have both a Chinese and a Zimbabwe heritage. And
Okay.
so, yeah, and so, my grandmother and my mother only spoke Chinese. But what was interesting is that my mother found it easier to speak in Ndebele, which is one of the
In the
native
belly.
languages in
Yeah.
Bulawayo, and
Yeah.
found it easier than speaking English.
Okay.
And so then as a child, when we went about, with helping her with her business, we would be translating for her and speaking English for her.
Okay.
So yeah, so my grandfather was very enterprising. He set up a farm, and he was very successful with market gardening. So we had
Hmm.
fantastic fruit orchards, mangoes and bananas and sugarcane and clementines and oranges,
Hmm.
peaches. We had wonderful fruit orchards, and then in addition to that, we also had a lot of vegetable gardens. So we would take the fresh produce to market every morning. Then in my father's time, they opened King Brothers store, which was on the main road between Bulawayo to the border with South Africa. So we would have the long
Okay.
distance
Okay.
buses traveling between the two countries stop at our shop. And so we had a supermarket on one side, a bottle store, and a butchery. And so since I was a
Okay.
young kid, yeah, since I was a young kid, I was always, helping in the business.
All right. So what? There's so many questions there. It's like, how do you personally, that Chinese African heritage? How do you facilitate that, manage that? How was that like growing up, for you personally?
It was very interesting because, in Zimbabwe, most of the faces are not Chinese; they're Zimbabwean.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so, I was definitely the minority there, but I didn't feel any kind of, difference. We were all treated the same. And that's what I like about the Ubuntu philosophy, is that they accept you as they are, and it takes a
Mm-hmm.
village. And so everybody
Mm-hmm.
comes, and so everybody is welcomed. And, you
Yeah.
just come as you are and you show up as you are. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
has taught me resilience, in America. A lot of
Yeah.
people try to adapt, to, their adopted country. But I think that a lot of the, resilience starts at home, and being able
Mhm.
to accept fellow country people, no matter what
Yeah.
their size or color or gender.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how was it growing up personally? I mean, you went to school there, a lot of friends in the area. Are you still in touch with individuals? Is your family still part of the area? What is that like?
Right. My mom was a single mom. My dad unfortunately passed of a heart attack when I was 8. And so, as a
Okay.
single mom with 6 kids, it was kind of like rough, because we depended on the business, for our
Yeah.
livelihood. And so I didn't really have a lot of chance to like play and hang out with friends. I was always busy, helping her, in the business. But I did have a wonderful childhood. There's
Yeah.
nothing beats the African sun. There's nothing beats, being able to run out, to your backyard and be able to pluck mangoes, fresh off the
Yeah.
tree. And so, after my junior school and my high school, I went on to the University of Zimbabwe, which was
Okay.
in Harare. Yeah, the capital city.
Harari. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
So,
Oh,
I had 6 brothers and sisters. I had 3 of my siblings, living with me in Harare, and so
okay.
we would, just live our life. And then in Zimbabwe, it was, very much, an opportunity for me to decide, what does my career look like following my degree in economics. So I
Mm-hmm.
naturally started banking. And so, I worked in the banking, field for 2 years.
Okay.
But I think also, having the mindset of being open and trying new things and embracing challenges in life. I was always looking
Mm-hmm.
for additional opportunities. And that
Mm-hmm.
opportunity came as an internship in Japan. So you can
Oh,
imagine me, the
yeah.
Zimbabwean girl, having an opportunity to go to Hiroshima in Japan for
Yeah.
an internship. That was a wonderful opportunity, through an
Yeah.
organization. So I think that no matter where you live, if you seek out opportunities and you have a curious mind, opportunities will land at your feet. So
Yeah.
I took that opportunity, went there, and came back to Zimbabwe, and that was a very interesting experience. Being able to like ride a bicycle through the Hiroshima Peace Park, on my way to and from work, was just a very um, sort of like sobering time for me, to realize, that, here was, the epicenter of one of the most, pivotal events, in world history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I mean, that's just fascinating. So, like you said, here you are, growing up in Zimbabwe. Definitely a minority, and then you go from there to Japan. I mean, what were some of the cultural hurdles you had to go through for yourself? Because I'll be honest, when I first met you, and my mind, I'm still, even though you travel, you still put people in different boxes. And then I heard you speak, and I'm like, what? Like that sounds African. And you were dressed to the T. Like you had your I think it's behind you. You had
Right.
the cane. You had
Yeah.
that there. Exactly. That
A
was
talking
there.
stick. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that you had the whole African year. You were 100% African. And then when you said Zimbabwe, my eyes even got wider. I was like, wow, I want to hear this story. So how was it navigating some of those cultural things, even going from Zimbabwe to Japan?
Well, unfortunately, the Japanese just thought I was a Japanese. And so they didn't know that I
Yeah.
had this interesting heritage.
Yeah.
But the company I worked for, they actually had me translating, English. So I worked for a restaurant chain, and so I translated a lot of their menus into English. And so, I
Okay.
helped them, prepare, all that translation. But the cultural difference was very huge because even though I have, my Cantonese Chinese upbringing, right, and my grandmother would cook us white rice every day, and then I would, supplement that with like, the traditional, Zimbabwean food, like the sadza,
Mm-hmm.
the which is the
Besides that,
cornmeal, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, besides that.
um, yeah, in Japan, they're very curious about foreigners. And so,
Mm,
as soon as I introduce myself as from Zimbabwe, they may not necessarily know where that is, on the map, on the world map, but they were very curious to learn more. And so it would blow
mm,
their mind that, my grandfather immigrated at the turn of the century, to Zimbabwe. And they would just like say, how is it? Do you ride an elephant to school? Is it very undeveloped? Is there education? Is there
yeah,
running water? Is there electricity? And so, of course, you have
yeah.
to say to them, it's a third world country, it's a developing world, but we have like good
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure, like everywhere
Mm-hmm.
else, but maybe
Yeah.
not a big city as like Hiroshima or like, Tokyo. But
Mm-hmm.
still, just a very interesting time for me to sort of like understand that the Japanese also have community at their core. So, like the
Okay.
Ubuntu philosophy, community is key. So the
Yeah.
Japanese are also very embracing and welcoming you into their community.
Okay. Okay. I mean, again, they made that assumption, and then they hear you speak, and I guess they're like, then that leads into more questions on, what's your story, and everything of that nature. Um, so you came back to Zimbabwe from Japan. You were working. What was the next thing? How did you go
Well,
somewhere
well,
else, or?
at that time, I was like, newly arrived from Japan. I had some money in my pocket, and I thought, why not try my own business? So then I started an
Mm,
export company between Zimbabwe and South Africa. So I had a truck, and I would, find, difficult to find items, whether they were luxury
mhm,
items or necessities for
yeah.
businesses in Harare. And then I
Hmm.
would do import and export, and drive through Bulawayo, stop there, and then continue on, to South Africa. And I did import export for a number of years. Um,
Okay.
then, as I was kind of like navigating that, I got a notification that I had won the green card lottery for
Okay.
immigration. So my oldest brother had entered us year after year, all, six of us brothers and sisters. And then that year I won. And so he said,
Okay.
like, come back to Zimbabwe, go to the American Insulate, and, follow the paperwork. And I was like, wow, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity that God has afforded me. Let's see where this
Hmm.
goes. So
Hmm.
time I was dating my now ex-husband from Mozambique. And so
Okay.
we were given the tough choice that I either come as a single person or I come as a married person. So then
Okay.
we decided to get married, and then we decided to come and take up the green card.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And so now
And
you're chance. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. And so the green card lottery still runs every year. So,
Yeah.
anybody
Yeah.
that is wanting to try their luck, and
Yeah.
possibly get a green card, there's the
Yeah.
opportunity there.
So on one hand, you saw the opportunity. You're still energetic. You have this business. You have this opportunity to come to the U.S. I'm sure there's some sadness because now you're leaving what you've known for so long and family as well. Um, how was your transition U.S. side? Where did you come, and what was again so those cultural uh, challenges that you found in the place?
Right. So I found a lot of culture shock. And honestly, I had culture
Mm,
shock for like a good year because
yeah.
America is so different. It's so fast
Yep.
paced, and the economy is so sophisticated. And so I really had to put on my running shoes and be like running all the time to keep up.
Hmm.
Because one
Yeah.
huge difference I noticed, in addition to the culture shock, is work-life balance. There just doesn't
Yeah.
seem to be much of that in America, unfortunately. You know, just the demands of your daily job, and then if you have a family, also trying to balance your career with raising kids, is very demanding, very, very tough.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that was one of the culture shock. And then still to this day, the portion size of food is is abundance in America. Even to
Yeah,
this day,
it
I
is.
always order a plate of food and end up taking half home with me because the portions are just
Yeah.
so generous. So I
Yeah.
remember that was something that just just astounded me. And then the shopping, the variety in
Yeah.
America, it's like everything is at every price point. So it's,
Hmm.
do you want to go with the brand name, or do you kind of like want to go with value? And so
Yeah. Okay.
just the variety of shopping also just amazed me. So
Okay.
yeah, so I think that is something that we get used to in America, but when you're coming from especially Zimbabwe, or any African country, America hands down is a shopping paradise.
Correct. Correct. It's just a different thing. And you talk about the foods portions, and especially in Texas, it's just wild compared to a lot of places. Um, so you get here, you're dealing with the culture shock. What's next? School, business? What was on the agenda?
Right. So then not only did I have trouble with people understanding what I was saying, and I'm like, I
Mhm.
speak the Queen's English. Why don't you
Yeah,
understand what I'm saying, right?
yeah. You
So
speak the Queen's
that
English.
kind of
Yeah,
like, so that kind of like, even to this day, sometimes Americans have difficulty understanding the words that are
yeah,
coming out of our mouth, which
yeah.
which is. But my credentials and my work experience and my degree wasn't certified. They were like, University of Zimbabwe, let's look at the certificate. It said you graduated with an economics degree, but that and your work experience doesn't really translate here. So I had to start a new career. And I find that that's something that a lot of us
Mhm,
face, when we
mhm.
come here, especially to the States. A lot of our credentials and our, work experience, doesn't, account for much unless you're
Yeah,
willing to go
yeah.
back and recertify, and then
Hmm.
then there's the complication of getting like, the US certification and then getting state specific
Hmm.
certification. So then at
Hmm.
that point, I kind of like fell into marketing. And then I started, working in marketing. And then at that time, my ex-husband started a successful architectural practice. So he's an
Hmm.
architect. And then that's when I started to learn, real estate. And then
Hmm.
fortunate enough to stay at home and be a stay-at-home mom and do real estate, while I had my two daughters. So
Hmm.
we did everything we could to launch his business, and we actually grew it to being able to employ three architects, two architectural technicians, and then we also sponsored a H-1B visa for an architect. She was actually
Okay.
from Jamaica, actually, and so we were able to sponsor her because she has a skill set and a qualification that is in
Mhm.
demand. And so we were able, to show, the hiring criteria and the need for her, to be on our team. And so we were able to
Mhm.
successfully sponsor her.
Yeah. And where was she from? You said?
She was from Jamaica.
Oh, Jamaica. Okay, sweet,
Mhm. Yeah,
sweet. That's
yeah.
awesome. And so now you're talk. How'd you do in real estate? It seems like you had so many business endeavors. So this is like what, the third business already, fourth business initiative that you're talking about?
Yep, yep. So I think that running a business in the US is very different to running a business in your home country.
Hmm.
Just how the systems are set up, and just how business is conducted in general. Like in developing countries, it's really through the connections and the people, and you do business on a handshake. Whereas here, everything is more transaction driven,
Yeah.
and so, we kind of like had to learn how to market the business. And so that's kind of like where, I learned to market his business and do more personal, relationship, for word of mouth referrals, and to get
Yeah.
business. And I
Yeah.
was already learning that in my corporate job as well. So I applied that, to his business. Um,
Okay.
so, we kind of like built up that business, and he still, is a practicing architect today.
Yeah.
But then along the way, we had a breakup, and then I was a single mom. And then
Hmm.
as a single mom with two daughters, I was like, now, I had to like focus on a corporate job. And that's when I fully immersed in digital marketing. And so
Okay.
that's kind of like
Okay.
when, companies were needing websites and they were needing search engine optimization, and they kind of like needed, to be on the World Wide Web. And so that came at a perfect time for me, because then I started working for, digital advertising agencies, learning different industries, and sort of like, honing my skills in marketing.
Okay. So
Mhm.
that must have been really, again, you have your two daughters, you're finding yourself in a whole different field that you really didn't start out, because you get degrees in economics and maybe some tie in there, but marketing and all of that. So how was that journey? And I guess you're kind of middle age right now, so in a way you're starting over again, um, with this new career. What were some of the challenges? Because I know that they could have exist doubt and uncertainty and insecurity. They talk about what do you call it, imposter syndrome and all, but you persevered. What were some of the takeaways and things you had to put in place?
Well, I think imposter syndrome is a real big is a real thing. But you honestly,
Mhm.
Ruben, have to fake it till you make it. And if
Right,
you just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
confidence, if you just predict confidence, then I think that people, kind of like will give you grace, to do
Mhm.
the best job you can. And I think it falls on your responsibility to ask for help, and to kind of like just ask for like mentoring, and for like
Mhm.
additional uh, opportunities in the workplace, if you really need it. And so,
Mhm.
as you know, and as you can tell, I'm a very outspoken type of person. So I'm
Mhm.
always, quick to offer help, and also quick to ask for help if I need it. So
Mhm.
I think that when you're in the workplace, it's really about being present, being authentic to yourself, and just being the best person you can be. And I
Mhm.
think that's true of your family relationships, whether you're a spouse, or whether you're a parent, and in the workplace, you kind of like have to have that flexibility, and that patience, and that compassion to want to work with others, and
Mhm.
all work towards the same goal, which
Yeah.
is the shared dream.
Okay. So tell us a little bit what a day-to-day or a partnership with a company would look like in the work that you do. So if someone came to you and said, "Hey, we're looking for some marketing assistance, trying to do this," how would they go about that?
Mhm.
How would you go about it?
So I think that what's important to realize is that digital marketing and social media isn't for the big brands. It's actually for
Hmm.
everybody. And there's enough success for everybody. And so whether it's for your personal brand, or whether it's for your business, investing in marketing is really, what can set you apart. So
Okay.
invest in technology, and
Hmm.
so, typically, people use social media platforms, and they use the
Yeah.
internet, but then they don't really know what's involved in actually, marketing themselves. And so the first mistake that a lot of people make is thinking that marketing is an expense. But you
Hmm.
really need to flip it the other way around, and realize that marketing is an investment in yourself and in your brand. Because
Hmm.
if you were to invest in marketing, your monthly fees to advertise on, say, Facebook, or on TikTok, or on LinkedIn, that marketing expense will be paid for if you got like one or two clients, or if you
Hmm.
got projects. whether that is, a long-term project, or whether, it's a lifetime client. Like I have, clients that have been with me, for several years.
Okay.
It's really about, trusting your expertise. And so,
Mhm.
having over 20 years worth of digital marketing experience and working for brands like Hilton and Samsung, and AT&T, now I have that confidence and that expertise that I can now, bring to my clients and be able to
Mhm.
best advise them on, the strategy that they should be, utilizing to kind of like just promote themselves online. So,
Yeah.
I like to try and encourage people to say, turn your passion into profit. If you're a full-time employee, but you've got a side hustle, or you've got a passion, or you've got, something that you love to do, why not
Mhm.
try and launch it on the side? See where it takes you. Leverage digital marketing and social media. Once you
Yeah.
get a taste of success, then you can scale it. And then hopefully, if it's your dream to leave your, W-2 job and, be self-employed, or whether you continue it as a side hustle to make, extra income, the opportunity is there. And
Mhm.
that's what, the internet and digital technologies, allows us to do, is to tell our story. Because the value that we have, our passion, is a service or a product that somebody else needs.
Mhm.
And so if you think about that for a minute, you don't have to, sell yourself. You just kind of like are marketing yourself to say, I have this product or this service, and I really think you could benefit from it. And I think that,
Mhm.
that allows us, to, create our brand. And then over time, with the right tools and with the right team in place, working with the right people, you're able to scale that, and grow that into, the business scale that you want it to be. And definitely in America, especially Texas, is such a business friendly state, that there's a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities.
So a lot of are your clientele's local, national, international? A lot of who your clients?
Yeah, so I had Canada, clients in Canada, and then I have
Okay.
national, but mostly local. And so my process is discovery. It's like, let me learn your business plan. Let me understand what your business goals are, and then let's commit to a marketing plan. Because if you go
Okay.
to if you go to a bank, for example, and try to get a loan, the first thing they'll ask you for is, what is your business plan and what is your marketing plan, right? And
Yeah.
then your financials. So, having a marketing plan, is an important piece of it. So, I consult with companies to find out what their business goals are. And then we develop a marketing strategy so that we have, the right campaigns in place. And then we have
Okay.
the right messaging. So, you may have the best, service. And unless you know how to message that service and find the right customers, that's kind of like where, the marketing strategy comes into place. And,
Mhm.
and as long as you're like, true to yourself, and as long as you're like authentic, you have a wonderful story and a wonderful
Yeah.
product or service to share with others. And like I
Yeah.
said before, there's enough success for everybody. So you
Yeah.
just have to find your niche, or find your place. And,
Mhm.
it's as easy as opening a website to sell your product. It's as easy as opening a TikTok shop, or selling on, Facebook and Instagram. Whether you want to be, a content creator or an influencer, or if you have a product
Mhm.
or a service, people are able to, like, realize their passions. And
Yeah.
with that passion will come time freedom, and hopefully financial freedom too.
Mhm. So you talked a little bit about, I think, mentorship. Do you mentor people? First, do you mentor people in the field of marketing, digital marketing that you're in, and then just personal development, mentorship of individuals in their personal lives or laying out their careers? Because one of the things that has with the African think tank is we have and we continue to talk about mentorship, how we're mentoring the next generation, individuals who want to go through that. Our founder, Sid O'Neill, she has done a number of posts about mentorship and kind of laying out why it's important to have a mentor, who you approach, and then even as a mentor, as a mentee seeking someone, how to go best about it, and as a mentor, who do you choose in her process of choosing that? So I just want to ask that same question to you around mentorship.
Sure. So I love Sidoni. She is, just a wonderful human being, and she's done some wonderful things with the African Think Tank organization. So kudos to
Mhm.
Sidoni. And actually,
Yeah.
when I actually saw a post about the African Think Tank, I was like, "That's my tribe. That's my people. I need to get over there." And then at my very
Yeah.
first meeting, I had the good chance to meet with Sidoni. And I said to her, I love the vibe. I love the people here. It's very welcoming. I feel like it's family. I want to volunteer. What opportunities do you have, for me to volunteer? So I jumped in, feet first. And I've been coming to, the monthly mixes,
Yeah.
as regularly as I can.
Mhm.
Because I think that sort of like understanding that there's such a diverse, African diaspora in the Dallas area, at least. We
Mhm.
all, are at different places along our journey, and I'm a little
Yeah.
bit further along in my journey, since I've been here, for a good 25 years now.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so mentoring is important to me. When I first started my agency, I kind of like looked at, people who were, sort of like starting out in their careers, and sort of like trying to, coach them, with their skill sets, and kind of like trying to sort of like, instill in them best practices, for
Mhm.
business as well as for, their work. I had a young lady in Nigeria, actually, that is going to college. And so she's a graphic designer. So she was
Okay.
helping me with some of my clients and doing some graphic design. So she,
Okay.
was somebody that I gladly mentored. And then everyone that, is on my team, we try to set ourselves up as SMEs, subject matter experts, but there's always, room to learn. And so I always encourage, additional learning, additional certifications, online courses, workshops, any way that you can learn and, further hone your skills in your area of expertise. I think,
Yeah.
education and, further qualification goes a long way.
Okay. So how many people make up your team right now? Team you
So
have.
I actually have, I'm unfortunately not able to employ W2 employees on payroll, much as I would like to. But I have
Yeah.
a team of, of five. So they work
Mhm.
with, and like I mentioned to you before, we're, subject matter experts in different areas.
Okay. Mhm.
So, website design, search engine optimization, social media, content marketing, and
Mhm.
then, in ads, Google ads, Facebook ads, TikTok ads. And
Yeah.
so we kind of like, have a very clear sort of like team collaboration. And we very much work, as a team, and we have, really good communication using a lot of tools, that you can find online, like project
Mhm.
planning tools, collaboration tools, so that everybody's on the same page, at the same
Yeah.
time. And that,
Mhm.
we're very clear on deadlines and deliverables for clients.
Mhm.
And so, we're also very good at reading data and analytics.
Okay.
So what we
Yeah.
do is we run campaigns for you on social media. We want to like analyze how well, that ad is performing. Are we targeting the right audience? Do we have the right message? And then we kind of like, what we do, what we call optimization. We do a lot of optimization, which is
Hmm.
fine tuning, the ads, or
Yeah.
fine tuning your marketing. So we learn from
Mhm.
successes, and then we try different things, and then we learn from that. And so we do a lot of testing as well. It's called A/B testing. So
Okay.
everything is pretty much, driven by data. So it's not like we write content and just put it out there. We are very
Yeah.
intentional, and we're very authentic, with the
Uh-huh.
type of messaging and the type of campaigns, because
Okay.
obviously we want to talk to the right people at the right time, and where they are looking for your service. They may not know that they need your service. And that's my
Okay.
job as a marketer, is to let people know that, hey, Ruben's got this amazing product and service. You should check it
Mhm.
out. In that
Yeah.
way, build a loyal following.
Okay. What has been some of the challenges? I mean, I think sometimes people go into business. I don't know if there's been an article. with this grandiose idea, which is great because you're trying to achieve something, and they look at the goal but don't see hurdles at
Right.
times, and that can sway individuals because the minute they hear one hurdle or two hurdles, like, I'm done with this. But how can you inspire individuals onto entrepreneurship, but be realistic with them about what they are going to encounter that is going to be very difficult, and what are the characteristics they need in order to overcome those
Right. So that's a really
challenges?
good question, Ruben. Because everybody's journey is different and there's no like straight line to success.
Yeah,
It's a tapestry that's woven with lessons and setbacks and challenges,
yeah,
along with the wins along the way. And
yeah,
so I think that, you are going to have, ups and downs in your business. But I think that, having belief in yourself is important, and having confidence in your expertise and believing in yourself, right? And sort of like getting your family and your friends behind you, to support
yeah,
you and cheer you on, is great buy-in. But I think that, when you kind of like an entrepreneur or a solo entrepreneur, the
mm,
important thing to realize is that you can't do it all, and there's only 8 hours in a day. So whether
yeah,
you're doing it full time or whether you're doing this as a side hustle, is to give yourself grace, and to
yeah,
come up with like systems, like I said, productivity tools, or project management tools to kind of like keep you on track, so
mm,
that you keep on task, but you're still and working towards your overall goals.
mm,
Um, I think that aligning yourself with the right people is also important. So it's very much teamwork makes the dream work. So
yeah,
having the right team behind you, so whether it's people that you're asking for free advice, asking people to mentor you, people that you're, aligning yourself with, I think that is very important. Is trusting the people that you're, aligning, with your team, and that
yeah,
you should also have the share the same values as well.
yeah,
So you don't want people that are gonna like cut corners, and may not, exhibit, integrity, in the business world. But your reputation
mm,
is the only thing you have. And so your
yeah,
reputation is what's going to get you recommendations and word of mouth and referrals.
yeah,
And so, you need to be, your authentic self, and be true to yourself.
yeah,
And I think that as long as, you go about, treating people, decently, with decency and respect, then I think that, it will be rewarded to you tenfold.
advanced lights. Okay.
Hmm.
And so again, I still sticking with that. Have you what would you think? Have you gotten to the edge where you're like, this is not for me? In any of the businesses you've done, and how do you overcome that moment? You know,
Yeah,
like, because
that's
I could, you lose stuff. People have started over. I mean, you've crossed. I mean, that export import business. Maybe I'd like talk more about in Zimbabwe, between Zimbabwe and South Africa. I mean, the hurdles of being a woman in that field at that time, some of the challenges there. And like you said, doing business in Africa is not the same as doing business in the U.S. So what are some of the stark differences and some of the similarities?
right. Um, so definitely, like I said, you can do business on a handshake in your home
Okay.
country, right? Because it's all
Yeah.
trusted relationships, and it's such a small community. You all know each other, so that the
Yeah.
minute you do one negative thing, the word's going to get out, and then your reputation
Yeah.
is destroyed, right? And no one wants to do
Yeah.
business with you, right? So that's
Yeah.
that's an important difference. That applies here as well. You've got to, stand behind your word, and
Mhm.
you need to do business with integrity. So I think that, that is, consistent, no matter
Yeah.
where you are, that's just good
Mhm.
business.
Yeah.
I think having the right mindset of resiliency, being able to come back, from a challenge, and look at that challenge as a way for you to learn a new opportunity, or a
Yeah.
challenge is actually, you flip your mindset, and sort of like trying to have a positive mindset that there was a lesson in there for me to learn. What was that
Mhm.
lesson? And
Yeah.
that's actually opening a door, for another opportunity. So,
Yeah.
that challenge or that barrier may not be an obstacle, but, it's up to us to, in tough times, be able to sort of like be innovative,
Hmm.
think outside the box, and even ask people, for advice,
Hmm. Hmm.
ask your team, ask trusted friends and, co-workers and peers, people in the industry, sort of like, get some advice from them if you think that the situation is insurmountable. So, obviously we're gonna, like, land flat on our face sometimes, and sometimes we don't want to get up, but if we just think about our why, I think the
Hmm.
why is like a very motivating factor. So
Yeah.
the why of, I just want to be successful, or I want a car, I think is not strong enough. I think the why needs to be rooted in who you are at your core. So whether
Yeah.
you're doing it for your family, or whether you're doing it for your kids, or whether you're doing it, to uplift your community. So
Hmm.
for me, I love working, with women and minority-owned businesses, as well as
Okay.
immigrant-owned businesses, because I want them
Yeah.
to be successful.
Yeah.
In America, as there's a lot of processes and systems that we may not have grown up with, or we may not
Yeah.
be familiar with. So it's trying to navigate, all the different channels of
Yeah.
doing business. And so,
Hmm.
sort of like, just having a positive mindset, and being open, to ask for advice, or to ask for help, when you need it.
Hmm.
I think is key. And then I think that also, just realizing that you can only do so much, but to count
Yeah.
every win, because progress is
Hmm.
progress, right, Ruben?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you have to like chalk up the wins, and,
Yeah.
rest on your laurels, and
Yeah.
sort of like enjoy that success of the wins.
Yeah. We're gonna getting down to about 10 minutes here. And I just want to ask you, what is it particularly for the African community in particular? Because you being part of that African think tank, and you keep coming back. I keep seeing you at the events, which is always awesome. You bring your what's that camera, the
The
rotating,
selfie booth.
the selfie booth. Yeah, you
Yeah,
keep bringing
we took
that and
pictures
offering to.
together.
Yeah, we
Yes,
took
it's to
the
make
pictures and
memories. It's to make
yeah,
memories, and to make friends, and to have, like,
yeah,
shared good times.
yeah. That's awesome. I'm glad you bring that. Um, and you volunteer for the African think tank. That's great. So again, can you share a little about where the ways you volunteered? But what would be the message for the African community in particular, um, as as we grow as a diaspora here in the U.S., but for all those who also look at coming to the United States, because again, what we do with the think tank and people watching TAT talks are not only in here in the U.S., but they're also back home in Africa. So.
Hmm. Yep.
Mm.
So I think, not only to embrace other Africans, but to embrace friends of Africa too. So I've
Mm.
invited, American friends and Americans, of like different ethnic descent, to come to the African think tank events, because really
Mhm.
it's all about, inclusivity,
Yeah.
being inclusive, being, welcoming, and really it's all about unity, because we all have,
Yeah.
the shared human experience, right?
Yeah.
And you never know, who you're going to meet, at these events. I've met other
Yeah.
Zimbabweans, and, I've
Yeah.
also met
Yeah.
some, wonderful people from other parts of Africa, and, been able to make, friends as well through the
Yeah.
African think
Yeah.
tank, and then,
Yeah.
a volunteer on the social media committee for the African think tank.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the crew of volunteers, that put out the social media, are, people that
Yeah.
I've gotten to know, and I work with them as well. And so,
Yeah.
I respect, the time and the work that they put into, all the volunteer hours to make things
Mhm.
work. And so I think that, you know when you find your tribe, when you find your people, and it feels like home, and it feels like family, then I think
Mhm.
leverage, because you can find, family through, your family relationships. You can find it
Mhm.
through maybe your ethnic community, like,
Mhm.
there be a church for Nigerians or for Zimbabweans, right? So where you seek out, your fellow countrymen, is awesome, and having that community for your kids. Because
Yeah.
I was able through family sponsorship to be able to sponsor my mother-in-law from Mozambique, and so she,
Okay.
a strong part of helping instill the African heritage, in my daughters, teaching them about
Hmm.
Mozambique and about Zimbabwe, and then
Hmm.
sort of helping them understand that their parents are originally from Africa, and being able
Yeah.
be proud of that heritage, and
Yeah.
explain it to kids, and be able to talk
Yeah.
knowledgeably about things like that. So
Yeah.
definitely, over the generations, having multi-generational, I think, is important. And
Hmm.
so respecting our elders is big in the Chinese community as well as the
Yeah.
African culture.
African community is huge. It is huge.
Like a lot of storytelling and a lot of anecdotal sharing is
Yeah.
also very important, and that
Yeah.
is like teaching the generations, and teaching the up and coming,
Hmm.
from experience, and from that shared wisdom, and from that
Yeah.
collective wisdom of the
Mhm.
community you know
Yeah. Well, it's next time I do, I'm outside more often doing these because it's cooler and the wind's not there. Next time I need to make sure I bring the light because I realize the times are changing, getting darker earlier than
Yeah, the days
earlier.
are
But
getting shorter. Yep.
yeah, the days are definitely getting shorter and all that stuff. But so I want to kind of bring it full circle. Thank you for sharing so much about the business aspect and your journey. And you mentioned your children and bringing your mother-in-law to talk about the African heritage. Have your children have an opportunity to go back to Zimbabwe, Mozambique, or somewhere in Africa for a visit? And then what are you doing to, again, you have your mother-in-law. Are there other things you're doing to hold on to the African community or traditions, and instill those in the lives of your children?
Yes. So my oldest has been to Mozambique and South Africa. Um,
Okay.
and it's so interesting because, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know how to look at it, being a single mom, there just never was the opportunity for me to take my kids back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it was just either have the time but you don't have the money, or you have the
Mm-hmm.
time off but you don't have the money. And
Yeah.
so the
Yeah.
opportunity sadly didn't present itself, but definitely having uncles and aunties from back home, and also
Yeah.
grandma living with us, who's Zimbabwean and from Mozambique.
Yeah.
Was a way for us to like enjoy the food and enjoy the customs and the culture,
Yeah.
because we still cook food from back home.
Yeah.
We have to go to the ethnic grocery stores here. So
Yeah.
with the Indian grocery store, the Ethiopian or the Nigerian grocery stores, we can still get food that we
Yeah.
had back home.
Yeah.
Um, and then embracing a lot of the festivals and the traditions, so
Yeah.
celebrating the independence days for the countries is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
And uh, I do plan to take my children back home.
Yeah.
They're dying to go back, and so hopefully with everything working out, we'll be able to go together as a family.
Okay. Um, there's another question that slips my mind. So you it's I think it has to do well, I think you connected with the cultural piece. And yourself, you haven't had an opportunity to go back since you've come, or do you still have those connections back home?
Well, I connect, with a lot of people, that I went to school with and that I grew up with on Facebook. So
Okay.
Facebook is kind of
Yeah.
like, my connector. So I keep
Yeah.
in touch with, friends and family that way.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'm, just waiting for the opportunities to go back home and sort of like visit my brother. My brother lives in Pretoria in South Africa, but
Okay.
we're all scattered around the globe. I have a sister in
Yeah.
Australia, sister in
Yeah.
California, a sister in Washington State, and then a
Okay.
brother lives in Laos, an Asian
Oh, okay.
country.
So are there still people in Zimbabwe from your family, or
No,
everyone's kind of just
unfortunately
dispersed?
not. Everyone's dispersed.
O-
Yeah. over time.
Okay, it was dispersed over time.
Either
All
through
right.
marriage or through, career opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you connected with any Zimbabwean community here? I know I think we met a Zimbabwean at the last mixer.
Yes.
I can't remember his
Brian.
name, but we're supposed to get to
Yep. Yeah,
Brian.
yeah, he knows my
Okay.
ex-husband. Yes, they actually
Oh,
have a
okay.
golfing community. Yes, so the
Yeah.
golfing community, very much gets together. I have Zimbabwean friends, and so I arranged to get together with them. My
Mm-hmm.
mother-in-law is fluent in Shona, so when she's in town, I take her to the Zimbabwean churches where they have services in Shona.
Okay.
So yeah, and so I just want to say that having the opportunity to raise kids in America, it's just learning resilience and learning to
Mm-hmm.
sort of like assimilate
Mm-hmm.
into the American culture. So volunteering at the school, volunteering at the PTA is also very important, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the community that helps you raise your child, and
Yeah.
has a good influence on your kids, and hopefully reflects on you as a good parent.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna start wrapping up here. What would be your words of advice again to individuals who are entering business? Again, you have done a number of businesses. Again, what would be some of the advice you have for them? And then what would also be advice for particularly the African community through the African think tank of ways they could navigate some of those cultural hurdles that we have?
Mhm. Right. So I think Ubuntu philosophy is first and paramount, because you want to, like, put others in your
Hmm.
community so that you can all rise together, right?
Yeah.
And so doing what you can, whether that translates as volunteer work, or whether it works ends up as directly helping them or directly doing business with them, definitely try and help support your fellow countrymen, or your fellow community, or your fellow African diaspora. I think also, just to connect with people authentically, and be authentic, to yourself, because that's what people see, when they build a relationship with you. They see the person to who you are. So you want to be seen and you want to be heard, and being authentic, is a way for people to recognize that and connect with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Also, grow meaningfully, so kind of like be intentional, about how you plan to go about your business. Sort of like, everyone has a story to tell, and
Yeah.
so sharing your voice, and reaching the right people will help you create lasting success and sustainable growth, because you're
Mhm.
building your business one connection at a time, or one customer at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Judy. I think you've left a great I think at African Think Tank, we're definitely very appreciative of you being part of the work and the mission, both in your skill set and the way and the thing you represent. Um, I think as a bridge, just through your experience, through the journey that your great grandfather took and his choice of coming to Africa rather than the U.S., and then you growing up based as a minority in a culture, but you're 100% African, born and raised in Zimbabwe, went to primary, secondary, university there, and so challenges that you faced and have overcome, and then going into Japan and being the culture, and come to the U.S. So that journey resonates uh, beyond just what people see when they see you. There's a kinsmanship and connection that goes beyond um, just physical complexity, right? Complexion, and that's when people hear that, like, I recognize that, and I like I have some good friends from Britain, and I never thought about the immigration story because they're from Britain, right? But when I sat and we talked, it's like we've been through the same thing, right? We
Right.
went through and became U.S. citizens and went through interviews and the processes and have that relational thing. So, um, thank you again for joining us. I'm going to give you the last word, and then we're going to shut it down. Folks, I like again. I every time I do this TAT talk, I learn some new things. It's getting darker. The days are shorter, but I love this light. The country life reminds me of being back in Bulawayo
That's
out
right.
here in the South.
Yeah.
And I
Um,
hope to go back to Bulawayo at some point, man.
oh,
I love
definitely,
Zimbabwe.
definitely.
So
Yep, yep. Yeah, you
yeah.
can't take Africa out of the African.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'll give you the
Yeah,
last word and we're gonna
yeah.
close out.
Just remember, progress is progress, no matter how small, and every step forward counts.
Mhm. That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. Okay. Thank you so much. Hey, we won't have TAT Talks next week because next Thursday is our September mixer for the African Think Tank. If you haven't come out yet, please come and join us. Invite your friends. Are we going to be able to see you there? Hopefully,
Yes, I
Judy. I
plan
don't
on
know.
being there.
Okay.
Yes.
And I know you sent out your invitations. You will have your camera. I don't see you just the moving
Healthy booth.
memory.
Photo booth.
Yeah, selfie booth. There we go. And so come out and take a selfie. Come and meet Judy in person. And people, I think we'll put your information so people can connect with you to both on a business level and maybe on a personal level. If there's any Zimbabweans out there who want to connect with you as well. Again, thank you everybody for joining us for another episode of TAT Talks, and we will see you in about 2 weeks. So,
Thanks, Ruben. Enjoyed the
all right,
time.
thank you. All right, bye everybody.
Bye.